So, we've talked about the properties of acids and bases, and we've looked at some examples, but what actually makes something an acid or base or neutral? Why is HCl an acid, but NaCl a salt? And so, to answer this question, I ask you to look at these four common acids, acids you have already worked with in the past or would have worked with this year. And what do you notice that they have in common? Okay, if you're looking at the formula or the geometry, one thing I hope that's jumping out at you is the hydrogen atoms. They all have at least one, if not more, hydrogen atoms that are sticking off, jumping out of the molecule. And so, what would happen to these if they were dissolved in water? Remember back from 2 weeks ago that water is able to dissolve other polar molecules and ionic compounds. So, in this example that we looked at before with sodium chloride, now pretend instead that it was hydrogen chloride or hydrochloric acid. The green circle would now be hydrogen, and the water would still act the same way. The negatively charged oxygen atoms would surround it, not only dissolve it, but also dissociate that into an ion, into a hydrogen ion, so that it has a positive charge. And it turns out that not only do all four of these molecules do that, but actually, that is the definition of an acid. Anything that, when put in water, dissociates to produce hydrogen ions or H plus ions. Those are interchangeable, they mean the same thing. So when we put hydrochloric acid into water, it dissociates into H plus and Cl minus, nitric acid, sulfuric, etc. So the definition for an acid is anything that releases hydrogen ions into an aqueous solution. Okay, well, what about bases? What makes something a base? Again, go ahead and take a look at these four common bases, all things you may have used in your life outside of school or we would have used this year. And what do you think, at least for the first three, what do they have in common? Uh-huh. Awesome. I hope you're seeing that OH. And that is called hydroxide. It will dissociate into an ion called hydroxide. And so that's the definition, one definition of bases. When put into water, they dissociate to produce hydroxide or OH minus ions. And the first three of these all do that. The second definition for a base is based on its ability to counteract acids. So remember the definition for acid, something that produces H plus ions. A base is something that can remove H plus ions. So if you've ever had indigestion or heartburn, you maybe have taken an antacid, something like Tums or Rolaids. Those will act to remove hydrogen ions. And so if you look at ammonia, can you figure out how it might remove a hydrogen ion? Yep, you got it. It has to do with that lone pair of electrons. That negative charge on those is going to pull a proton towards itself, and it will become NH4 or ammonium. So bases, two things. They can either be substances that release hydroxide ions in solution or ones that remove hydrogen ions. So what about neutral? Why is water neutral? Do you have an idea? Well, what is water? It's hydrogen and hydroxide put together. It's H2O. So if we combine a base and an acid, we get neutral. They neutralize one another. And in its essence, that's what water is, a hydrogen ion and a hydroxide ion combined. Okay, let's do a little practice. There's 6 terms here. Can you group them into either acid, base, or neutral?